do it, but we're going to do this thing. The Remarkable Paper Pro. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Ed. I don't talk about the Remarkable a lot. I think it's a wonderful piece of technology, but everyone pretty much knows that I'm a Supernote fan. I've had the A5X since I first started exploring and doing digital note taking back during the pandemic, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. The first device I ever wrote on, though, was a friend of mine's Remarkable, who had one at the library, and I'm like, that looks really cool. Can I take a look at it? And I scratched around for a little while on the Remarkable and just thought it was a fabulous device. The thing about the Remarkable is it's just not the device for me as far as I need something a little bit between books and a little bit between the Remarkable. Remarkable's a little too simplistic for me, and the books is way too much for an e-ink tablet as far as I'm concerned. It just has too many bells and whistles, and I don't know that it does all of it well. That's just my conception based on all of the reviews that I watched at the time. And I don't think that this announcement changes that. But what I want to say, and we will walk through, first of all, I've consumed all the content I could find on the announcement, the release. But I want to talk about some of the things that I find really impressive about how Remarkable did this, their philosophy behind it, and how cool the technology that they are exploring is. Again, I would not purchase this device personally because it wouldn't fit into my workflow and my ecosystem. I need my device to do other things. I'm also not 100% impressed with the color. Not impressed from a technological standpoint, but I don't need it. But let's just jump in, take a look at the website, talk a little bit about the technology, and then we will come back and do some kind of closing thoughts. But I did want to address it. I think it's an important topic, and I will see you here in just a minute. All right, so here we are on the Remarkable website, and the first thing I want to say is this is an amazing piece of technology. I want to get that out of the way, and not amazing as in it's the most cutting edge thing in the world, but amazing in the fact that they are really doing something in their own way with their own style attached. And I think that is really cool. And I think if you are the person that device is for, or more so, if you're the person who wants a device that is in a completely contained ecosystem and really does one set of features well, this is probably the device for you. Now, whether or not you need color would give you that sense of whether or not you need to have the Remarkable 2, which I am very glad to see they are maintaining, or whether you want to go for something like this. The biggest caution for me is going to be price, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I do want to get it right out of the way and say what they've achieved here from a technological standpoint. And Roderick at Rants About Tech talked about that their specs aren't really high, and I would agree. But I don't think they need to be for what they're trying to accomplish. They are very clear in their vision for what this is. It is not something you're going to play video on. It is not something you're going to sideload and run a bunch of apps. It doesn't run Android. You're not going to have that kind of power demand that you need that for. And I think that rightly so, they've worked really hard on the things that they think matter most. And if you're in that community and you own one of the Remarkable devices, you're more than likely to agree with some of those design choices and decisions. Just like Apple with their products, I think it's a very similar approach. And they get compared to Apple a lot. I don't think they're quite to that innovation level, but in the e-ink space, they're definitely on the cutting edge. Here we are on the homepage of Remarkable with the Remarkable Paper Pro. Absolutely love the fact that it's 11.8 inches. I think that's extremely important. The new Supernote, I think, is going to come out at 10.7 inches. So it's a little bigger than the current A5X, but not quite to that A4 size. This is more towards the middle of that. I think it'll be an interesting comparison to see how the reviewers deal with it. Personally, I'm not going to be getting this device. As much as I'd love to have one in hand and play with it, it would distract from my goal, which is working my daily routine and productivity. Free shipping. I think their 100 days risk free trial is best in class. There's nobody that lets you spend that much time with the device to see whether or not you like it. And it is one of the few devices that you can really go to the store, put your hands on, and test in a real meaningful way. And I think that that's a testament to how they've approached this. $579 is a pretty steep price, and that includes the marker, but no cover of any kind. That could change up some things when you start stacking, and we'll actually run through a cart and see what it would be like to trick one out. Ultimate Paper Tablet, they don't, and this has been a thing for a lot of the reviewers today, they don't really talk about changing the software experience much. I think this is strictly a hardware upgrade. I think you can expect to be able to do almost everything on the Remarkable 2 that you can do on this device from a functionality standpoint, with the exception of some of the color only features that come with the software. And that seems to revolve around drawing, bringing paper into your digital workflow. An elegant device. It's a beautiful device. Colors, from what they're showing in these images, are vibrant and clear and just really kind of amazing. If you're someone who works in color, this is going to be a completely different experience than Kaleido 3. Find your focus. I think this is a truly focused device. At some point, we'll get into the whole debate over distraction free focus, all of that. But this does extremely well when you're talking about focus. And primarily that's because there's not a lot of rabbit holes to go down with this device. You don't have notifications. You don't even have real email integration. You don't even have a calendar. Everything is considered to be very well done in an digital analog way, if that's even a term, but very much so. What's interesting to me, and there was a lot of talk about how in the world did they get closer with, how did they get the nib and the pen closer to the ink, considering they added a front light. And of course, part of that is they have the textured screen, so they're not putting an extra screen layer over it. Another part is it's not Wacom enabled. You don't have a Wacom layer that is, creating more distance. And that comes with trade-offs, and we'll talk about that here in a minute with the pen. And then they still added in a front light, and the front light appears to be some kind of a hybrid. It's not a warm or cold light, but from the demos that I saw from Voya at My Deep Guide and the marketing materials here, it appears that what they've done is kind of found the right balance of light to bring up that brightness and make the screen look how it should for the purposes of what you're trying to do with it. Again, probably not going to read with a device this size in bed, but you may be in dimly lit conditions and still want to write and do all of your note taking. You can kind of see some of the texture here. At least I assume that's what that is. With the glass that they've got. Quite frankly, the biggest thing for this whole thing is this color display. If you watch the Jeffrey Moss review of the Bigme Galley, it was such a risk by Bigme, and I give them full credit for taking a risk, but it was a disaster when it came to pixelation, ghosting, flashing in between, all kinds of issues. Jeffrey did a very good job of talking through that and being like, this would be great. And once the image is stable, it is great. It's just not there yet. And Remarkable has obviously taken that technology and stacked it and created their own custom display. And I believe that's similar to what they did on the Remarkable 2 as well. They took the basic e-ink display and they created their own stack and their own proprietary twist on what e-ink had done. And that's what they say they're doing here. They're calling it a canvas display instead of a galley. And I think that's really worth noting. Visualizing color, again, if you're someone who really likes to use color, this is the device for you. You're not going to get a better color experience, at least from everything I've seen here and the demo that Voya showed where he was hands on at Remarkable. It is going to be a different experience. It's not going to have as high of a refresh rate. It's not going to be as flowy as you're used to seeing on maybe the books devices, which you have muted colors, but they're very fast because of the BSR technology. But if you look at this picture right here, if it's anything close to this representation in person, it's going to be amazing. The pen, uh, the marketing speak, I mean, Remarkable's great at the marketing piece, 100%. But this whole the pen perfected, I don't get it. I'm sorry. That's just not, I don't see that. It looks like an Apple Pencil, which is probably one of the best digital styluses on the market. But again, it's an active capacitive pen. I understand that there may be reasons they had to do that, and it definitely kept the ink to pen nib distance minimized. And that's awesome. Problem is, this is now the only marker you can use on this device. You can't use your current Remarkable marker on this device. You can't use any other Wacom stylus. And I know that the Supernote gets a lot of grief for having a pen that is proprietary and a ceramic nib, and that it can only be used on one device. Well, that's fine, but you have choices of other pens that you can still use on the Supernote. So if you don't like the ceramic nib, you can buy a Lamy All-Star. You can get Norris Digital Jumbo. You can get pretty much any other Wacom stylus and use it on the device. In this case, this is it. It's a one-trick pony. You can't get anything else. That limits a lot of functionality and it drives up the price, quite frankly, because you have to buy the stylus with the device. When a new Supernote comes out, I wouldn't have to get any other pens because I own Heart of Metal pens. And I also have an Horse Digital Jumbo. The front light, I think that's really interesting. It says low glare in direct sunlight. I'd be curious to see, and hopefully Voya and Kit, when they get their hands on this, and maybe Brandon as well, will take and put this outside and let us see the glass screen without a protector and just some kind of a textured surface, whether that reflects and diffuses enough light the same way as it would be in more traditional paper tablets, including the Remarkable 2. I'd like to see those two side by side. Adjustable brightness, eye friendly, no flickering lights. I think that's great. Again, these colors are just really cool. The staying organized with Connect, sustainable ideas. This one's interesting because with the Nomad, Supernote kind of changed the game. They went early on this idea of modularity and they made it so that you can replace pretty much anything inside the case. Remarkable says that it's more sustainable. And I think I heard someone say, and I don't know 100% for sure, but it's up to 70% replaceable components. Now, that's a huge jump, and it is a move in the right direction. But from everything I see here, it's still not right to repair in the sense that you can take the device apart and replace the battery, the motherboard, the chipset, whatever have you. That doesn't appear to be the case here. You would still need to take it to an authorized or a professional repair shop, and it should be easier for them to work on to replace those components. But it is a step in the right direction, and I think that's really cool. And the fact that they're standing behind the original Remarkable 2 is a testament to that. I do think it's cool that they have these new peripherals or these new accessories, including a new type folio. But again, I know the size is different, but having to buy all new things creates some friction for the people who just want something that they can upgrade to. You have to buy a new marker. You have to buy a specific marker, either the marker or the marker pro. Um, or I think it's the Marker Plus. You have to buy the new type folio if you want a new type folio. You have to buy the new book folio if you want a new book folio. I mean, that's both the blessing and the curse of making a larger device, but any number of those things could have been addressed maybe a little differently. You'll see here the size, it's substantially larger, which is kind of a good thing. Substantially larger in one way. It doesn't have that side bezel, so they don't make they give you more screen real estate without making the device itself way larger. I mean, it is larger, and you can see those dimensions here, but it's not as much of a leap as you may see in going from an A4 or an A5 size tablet to an A6. So that, 10.3 to 13.3, you're not going to see that big of a gap. Weight wise, again, it's quite a bit heavier. And I think that makes a big difference. It's not as thick as you would think it would be with all of that technology, including a front light in it. The canvas color display, I actually think that they are really smart here, sticking with the 229 ppi instead of going for 300. A, it's closer to the original Remarkable. B, it's consistent between black and white and color. And you get that ability to customize that gallery display. So it's still better than anything else color on the market. Color for Kaleido is 150 ppi, and it's short of the 300, but it's not going to be, I think, as noticeable of a difference as people think it will be. Now, that may be personal opinion, and that'll bear out with the reviewers who are going to be actually looking at this device. The adjustable reading light, again, brand new thing. The textured glass cover lens. So it is saying, I don't know if that's an application on top of the glass or if it's a glass lens that's textured. Pen has a carbon fiber build tip, so it's a totally different feel from the original device. The fact that the pen to ink distance is less than the Remarkable 2 is really cool, and again, is partially because of that stack. Usable in direct sunlight. This is what I'm really curious about. This is 15% less glare. Well, less glare than what? Is it less glare than an LCD screen? Because 15% in that case would not be great. Or is it 15% less than the reflective digital paper display? It'll be interesting to see what that comparison side by side looks like. Battery, it's heavy because it needs more battery to keep that same promised battery life. Charging speed was increased. Writing latency is supposedly almost cut in half. So that'll be interesting to see, especially with what it looks like a trick they're doing with the color, which is to have it kind of bring the fastest particles up and then bring up the full color shortly after. So you almost get a little flash of, okay, I saw you drew this thing, and now I'm going to fill in those color pieces, but I don't want you to have to wait on me to do that while I do this other thing. Connectivity, the same. I do think it's important that they increase the storage, but quite frankly, on this device, the supported documents were not, and I don't think they list that on here. We'll have to go back to the other page. And let's see if we can find that here. So the supported documents, it's not a ton. It's PDFs and EPUBs for the most part, and then their own notes. If you're trying to do a lot of different things on a device, it's a double-edged sword. So in one way, this is perfect for Remarkable and who Remarkable is and who their users, I think, are. If you're primarily doing reading on EPUBs and PDFs, and you're annotating and you're wanting to read journal articles and you want them to be in color, or if you need them to be in color, this device is perfect for that. It'll do that. It'll handle it. But those aren't going to be huge data hogs. So you're not going to need a ton of space for that. On the other hand, and I think this might be where they're showing the limits of their own screen, why they don't support, and I'm not a comic book reader or a graphic novel reader, but I know a lot of people who are. This would be beautiful for that use, but would it be fast enough? Would the refresh rate be able to handle that kind of content in a sustainable way, especially since it doesn't have something like Books Refresh. Okay, the last thing we're going to do here is we are going to take a look at pricing. We've talked a little bit about the cost of this, and I think it's really important with just the marker, so just the basic marker and the tablet. They're saying buy now for $579. If you want to add the marker plus, and now let's say that you want just the book folio and the material. So let's go with the basic. Let's stay with black. So just with those two items added, the marker plus, upgrading the marker, you're now at $779. And that's after a discount. Okay. Let's go back and say, let's stick with the standard pen. In this case, it's $729 if you get a folio. Now, let's go ahead and take this thing. Let's go to the nines. Let's take it all the way up. Let's get the marker plus. Let's get the type folio. Now you're at $829. Regular is $858. So you do save a bit by bundling that way. But if those of you who remember, that's approaching what it cost for the Tab X. At least from what I've heard Voya and others describe, the Tab X was around $800. And for that price, you got a 13.3-inch screen and a fully functional Android tablet. No color, but a much bigger screen, real estate, and full access to the Android store. Again, I don't want full access to the Android store, so that wouldn't be for me either. But this kind of a price, you're approaching, iPad Air levels. And I don't know that this would make sense for someone like me. But again, it's all about what works for you and in your workflow. All right, well, let's jump back over for some concluding thoughts. All right, welcome back. So there you have it. That's my reaction to the Remarkable Paper Pro. I think for those who are in the Remarkable ecosystem and really want color, and quite frankly, anybody who wants or needs color done right, this is probably as close as you're going to get. But again, it comes with a huge caveat. One, that active stylus. Two, that idea that it's not an all-in-one device like books or some of the others. So there's no watching video on this. There's no looking at magazines on this. You can't load anything like Pocket or anything like that on it. But as an EPUB or PDF reader with color, or as someone who draws, I think, an artist or someone who really needs to use color in note taking or sketch out things in color, it's a phenomenal device. Is it worth the price tag? That I am not sure. I mean, you are talking about with the basic marker and no folio starting at $579. And that's on their front page. So you get the basic marker and the device itself for $579. That's steep for something that is so limited in some ways, cutting edge technology in other ways, but is it something you want to be able to do? So for that alone, I think it's worth considering whether or not this is the device for you. But again, that's my reaction. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate everything you all do. Please like, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, bring everyone along. Check out my Patreon page that I just launched the other day. Some cool stuff coming up there, including a top 10 list of the top 10 most viewed videos from YouTube with a little bit of behind the scenes commentary that should be dropping on Monday. Till then, take care of yourselves and I will see you soon.